Okay, so let's get on to Scrum versus Kanban, the topic for us here. So we'll talk about some of the basics. We may not touch base about manifesto and principles and practices a lot, but we'll talk about some of the other things. So let's first talk about why use Agile. Very fundamental thing. Why use Agile? You can either talk or put your comments in the chat box. So why use Agile? Why companies, why teams, why people should use Agile?
Well, this is Kamal. Well, for one thing, Agile speeds up the whole project management process. And as a result of that, you get cost saving, you get piecemeal deliveries that kind of make up the overall, deliverable that you have. So those are some of the advantages of Agile.
Yeah, very good. Anybody else? Anybody else want to talk or put their comments in the chat? Philip, I'm not able to see the chat here. Anybody else? My webinars are very interactive. I'm not in a mood to do all the lecture sites. I want to hear. I want to hear from you.
Okay, we are getting a couple of messages on our chat. I'm looking for the way to share that with you.
Anybody else want to talk about that as Philip brings up the chat here? Or you can talk, Philip, if you're not able to share. That's all right.
So we have a couple of responses. So Nathan helps us, Agile helps us manage and react to change. Mustafa, quick delivery in smaller bites. And then Nachincha, Agile is introduced to manage uncertainties and deliver customer expectations in a better way than the waterfall method. All great points.
Okay, very good. So let me share what I feel why people or companies use Agile. So the very first thing is the money. That's why lots and lots of companies are using companies will not invest unless they see return. That's fundamental. That's very, very fundamental. So if the senior management they don't see any return, and Agile provides more revenue and faster growth. More revenue and faster growth. So the company grow revenue 37% faster and generate 30% higher profit. And this is not I'm saying, this is coming from a paper published by PMI, and you have the reference below. So that's the key part. That is why you see companies spending, millions of dollars in transforming their organizations to Agile. They are not just doing because the team feels good about it, or there is a greater collaboration in the team, or there is greater empowerment. Those are good things, but this is fundamental. This is fundamental to the companies. That's why they would like to transform to Agile. And then speed. Said was talking about the incremental implementations. That's what counts a lot. Time to market. any idea that comes, in somebody's mind today, the it is useful only if it can be implemented. If somebody else implements that idea, guess what? They get the market share. You don't. So that's another thing Agile provides, the speed. And sometimes the speed is people get confused with the speed. Is like delivering all the features and functions what are needed in the product, 100% of those faster. So that is not the meaning over here. Of course, that may happen, but the speed means here highest value items delivered fastest, where there is a highest value for the customer, that is delivered fastest. So it is possible that in a given time frame and given budget, all 100% functionality of a product may not be delivered. But whatever is delivered is high value. So that is the key part that all of us need to understand. Is speed means delivering the high value fast, not the entire scope. It may happen when the teams become more efficient. That may happen, but this is what the meaning of faster. And then adaptability, the changing things on the fly. Agile provides a way to change things on the fly. If new things come up, new ideas come up while you are implementing the previous ideas, if you have to change course because of things that changed around you, that's where Agile is very effective as compared to waterfall or other methods where it may be very difficult to change course very quickly. So adaptability is a big part of Agile, or a big benefit of Agile. And the mindset of being adaptable is a big cultural change, is a very huge cultural, actually the whole Agile is a cultural change. And when we talk about culture, then we need to understand what is the meaning of culture. So the very easy way to understand culture is to way of doing things, way things are done in a team, the way things are done in an organization, the way things are done in a society, way things are done in a country, way things are done in a continent or whatever, So the way things are done makes a culture. So the way a team does a project in Agile is very different the way team does similar things in non-Agile environment. For example, gathering requirements. As I was talking, gathering requirements for Agile project is very different. The way you gather requirements for Agile project, the way you manage requirements for Agile projects is very, very different than managing and gathering requirements for waterfall projects. So that's where the culture comes. And I just wanted to talk more about culture because I thought that may be a good discussion for everyone. And then, of course, empowerment and learning. The team get empowered, there is a sense of ownership, and learning happens on a regular interval. Retrospectives is a great way to learn. Reviews is a great way to learn. So there are many, many opportunities in the project to do learning, and that helps the team to perform at a highest level. So those are the 4 key category of benefits. The money part, speed, adaptability, and empowerment and learning. Those are the 4 things, and these 4 convey the benefits. Is there any major benefit that I might have missed other than these? Or another category of benefit that I might have missed? Anybody?
Yeah, I was thinking too. I see someone wrote customer satisfaction.
What was that?
Customer satisfaction.
Customer satisfaction. Yeah, yeah. And who was that, Joe? I didn't recognize the voice. So okay. Anybody else? Customer satisfaction. Yeah, yeah.
What about improved communication? Because change happens often, and it almost forces you to communicate.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Communication. Okay. Yeah. Improved communication. Right. 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 Anything else? Okay, maybe people are writing on the chat that I cannot see. Okay, all right. Let's move forward. So just a reminder, in just three or four words, Agile is iterative. We all know that. There are iterations. It's customer focused and data driven. So third part is very important. And the Agile teams that work on their projects or product development without collecting and looking at the data, they don't improve. This is very important. So the data could be related to the productivity, related to quality, related to customer satisfaction, whatever. But unless the data is collected and reviewed during the retrospective, and learning from that, the data happens. So every learning that comes is one is that you feel like, subjective. That's fine. But if you say, okay, we learned it and we are going to do that thing differently, but how do you know you improved? You don't know unless you have the data collected before and after. So it's very important to collect data on a regular basis, define some matrix that is relevant for your team, your organization. There are really more than a dozen agile metrics that you can use, but you can select maybe 2 or 3 or 4. I will say at least 2 to 4 metrics that you should select for your team and measure that over a period of time, maybe at the end of each sprint, and plot a graph. And if the trend is favorable, then that demonstrates that things are getting better. Without data, it's all in the air. So on the methodologies, I will talk about Scrum and Kanban mainly, though Agile had, Agile, I was telling, is an umbrella kind of thing. It has many methodologies. There are few I listed here, but there are more. So Agile is a much bigger thing than just a Scrum or Kanban. And let's say Scrum. So is there anybody here who don't know about Scrum? Anybody who has not heard about the Scrum or not? If I'm showing this picture over here for a Scrum, does this seem familiar? You might have seen the picture in a different manner, but does it seem familiar to you? Anybody? I'm not seeing any responses or anybody talking.
No, this is familiar to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody who has not seen this? Because I don't want to spend a lot of time in talking about this if everybody knows about this. Anyone here who has not, who doesn't know about Scrum? So if there is no response, I will assume that everybody knows.
Well, yeah, I'm the newest, I guess, so I'm very, very new. But
Oh,
the
Eric.
picture itself-
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the picture
Okay.
itself looks
Yeah.
like similar to waterfall or project bound.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Is set up in a project.
Okay. Okay. All right. So key things about Scrum, it has three pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Those are the three fundamental things for Scrum that is practiced through four different ceremonies: sprint planning, sprint reviews, sprint retrospectives, and daily stand-ups. Those are the four ceremonies where you develop or do things in a transparent manner. You inspect the outcomes or the deliverables at least a couple of times during the sprint. Even every day you talk about how things are going. So that's also part of inspection. And then based on that, adaptation. As I was talking to, adaptability is a very important or a key benefit of Agile. So that inspection, retrospective reviews, that provides opportunities for improvement and adaptation. So those are the three key pillars of Scrum. And many of you, if you know Scrum, may already know about it. But if not, then I just wanted to put it here. And then Scrum roles. So there are three basic roles in Scrum: product owner, who represents stakeholder, voice of the customer. And the key part of this role is that he or she is accountable for ensuring the team delivers value to the business. So that accountability rests with product owner, not the team. The team works on whatever product owner asks them to work on. So if there are issues, there are defects that were found in one of the sprints and could not be fixed during the sprint, what happens to those? If there were issues, new requirements or new requirements that came up and the defects reported from field or production, then whether to fix those or to develop new functionality, whether to work on technical debt, how much, everything is decision of the product owner. What the team will work on, what is more valuable to the customers and stakeholders. That is the determination that product owner does. Some teams are big, some teams are large, and you may have multiple product owners. I don't know if you face that situation or not, but I have seen it multiple times. So you may have multiple product owners. In that situation, you probably need somebody in the role of what I call as master product owner to resolve the conflicts among different product owners. So that's a very key role, very fundamental role. The product owner actually drives the agile teams or what the teams are going to work on. And then of course the Scrum Master who is facilitates Scrum and helps the team learn the process. And then of course the team. The team is the one that works on the different tasks of the sprint, and they are the one who do the work. And then you might think about BAs, QAs, and PMs The Scrum guide doesn't provide any description for these roles. But irrespective of roles, these activities need to happen. So whatever business analyst does, that activity need to happen. Whatever QA does, that activity need to happen. Whatever PM does, that activity need to happen. So those activities may be done by these roles that are there. I have listed. Many of the roles are done by the teams, but these roles exist, or the activities done by these roles exist, even though the roles may not be specified. Okay. Any questions here on the Scrum part?
No question.
Okay. Okay. And I see here some comments now. Philip is able to let me know how do I see the comments now. Life is good. I can see the comments over here. Okay. So now let's talk about Kanban. Have you heard about Kanban? Anybody has worked on Kanban? So, and I'll get back to some of these comments later on. I see a question here from Nathan about, do you see project manager playing the Scrum Master role? We'll talk about that. But has anybody okay, so I'm assuming that most of you know about Kanban, but let me tell you what Kanban is. In a very precise or very I'll say in a very simple way, is a set of principles and practices that are applied to an existing process. That's what is important, existing process. So it is not trying to improve the process from the very beginning. It's practices that are applied to an existing process. And see, it's calling about process. Is not talking about project. So that's the difference. It doesn't talk about project. It talks about a process, and it doesn't talk about any kind of IT process. It's just a process. So that's another fundamental thing that Kanban can be applied to any process, whether IT, non-IT, or whatever. There are three project change management principles of Kanban. How to bring a positive change? What are those three principles? The first principle is start with what you do now. So no change. Start what you do now. So that's the very first principle of change management. Respect existing roles, responsibilities, job titles. So like in the Scrum, you saw that there are new roles, there are new titles, but here nothing. No new roles, no title. There were BAs or project managers, QA, whatever those roles were. Start with those tech lead, architect, or different roles. So you can start. You don't have to change anything, but then you agree to pursue improvement through evolutionary change. And I want to talk about evolutionary change. So there are two kinds of changes: evolutionary change and a revolutionary change. A revolutionary change is a huge change that happens in a very short period of time. That's called as revolution. You heard of different kind of revolutions that have happened in our society. And the evolutionary change is the small changes that happen over a long period of time. Like you heard about human evolution. So 3,000 years ago, we were very different than what we are today. But those changes have happened over a very, very long period of time. So if you talk about revolution in the way we communicate, like emails, phone, and all those kind of things, that have happened in a very short period of time, and we say things are changing very fast. You notice those changes, right? Facebook, WhatsApp, all those kind of new things what you hear has happened in last maybe 10 years, maybe 15, right? So those are not evolutionary changes, they are revolutionary changes. So for Kanban, evolutionary changes, small changes over a period of time. Encourage act of leadership. The leadership can come from anybody, any individual. They don't have to be in a higher senior level position. And then there are 3 service delivery principles. Understand and focus on customer needs. What are the needs of the customer? And then manage work, not people. Let people self-organize around it. That's the empowerment part. Manage work is what work need to happen when. Who does it, how it's get done, leave it on the team. They will figure it out. And also understand that your team is not everything in the organization. An organization is an ecosystem of several services, and they are interdependent services. Need to know about them. Not need to know every detail, but need to know how to navigate, what to know, who to contact, and all those kind of things. So those are the principles of Kanban. And then there are some core practices of Kanban. So the very first practice is visualize. Visualize the process and also visualize the work. And then limit work in progress. So that is basically saying that reduce multitasking. Don't keep many things open. So if you are working on 10 things, then you will actually be slow. You will be slow versus if you work on 2 things. So limit work in progress. Limit how many things can be open at a time. So work in progress means you have started something but not finished. No. So started but not finished. That is called work in progress. So limit that work in progress because that actually slows you down. And manage the flow. See where the work is stuck. Where the work is stuck, and then move the work. Try to see how you move the work to the next stage. Make policies explicit how it moves from one stage to the other stage. Feedback loops. So in Kanban, you don't have retrospectives like you have in Scrum. So in Kanban, actually, there is no like ceremonies that are part of Scrum, but it does encourage the practice of feedback. So you can set up a cadence in your team, and the cadence means kind of a regular thing that happens. It could be a weekly feedback. So you can sit down and look what's going on, but yeah, it could be similar to retrospective, but you can talk about how things have gone well and what need to change. Okay. And then improve collaboratively and evolve experimentally. Do experimentation. See what works and what doesn't work. If this thing doesn't work, try something else. If that thing doesn't work, try something else. Because it is the small changes done over a long period of time, evolutionary change. This is what key about Kanban. And there are rules, is visualize the workflow, limit work in progress, measure and optimize. Measure. You need to have data. So that was part of Agile. Every Agile methodology will talk about measurements. We'll talk about matrix. We'll talk about look at the data. And the tool used for Kanban is Kanban board. And there's a picture over here, and I'll show you some more as it coming up. And there are two activities that are done on this board. You move items from one state to the other state and identify and resolve bottlenecks. If things are stuck at one place, then you figure out why things are stuck at one place and then resolve this. So this is a little bit bigger picture of the Kanban board. And if you see here, this talks about what are the different kind of work or category of work that the team does. So there could be some standard kind of work that the team may do. It could be expedited, like something that is critical. And if that kind of activity, that kind of task comes, then it goes faster. It just supersedes everything else. There could be certain activities that are related to fixed state, certain deliverables, or certain work items, and then you have intangibles. So this is if you have different type of work that you do. And their first column is backlog. Whatever need to happen goes in the backlog. And when you are ready to work, you move it to what is called a replenishment queue or ready queue or whatever you want to call that. Okay, out of the backlog, I am going to work on this now. This particular item moves here, and then you perform whatever you need to perform, activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, and then done. So your requirement moves from left to right as the things progress. Now, in the next example, I think it may become a little more clear what those activities are. So you can see here the backlog, the things have in progress, means the development is being done on these requirements. Now, these requirements are under test, and these are done. And then there could be some requirement that could be blocked. Blocked means it is waiting for something, and you cannot make progress unless that blocker is removed. So there could be an internal blocker, or there could be an external blocker. So sometimes when you work with other departments or vendors outside your company, then maybe they have to perform something and they have not finished, so it may go there, and then it just waits there until they finish. Or if their work is known to you, what they do, then you can actually create columns for that and move the requirements into those stages what your vendor is working on. So it just depends upon how you see the work. So that's another example. Any questions about Kanban before I move forward? Any questions about Kanban? And I'll wait for maybe 20 seconds or so if there are any questions. So now I can see the chat box. You can type in the chat box or talk, whatever is. Service delivery principles. Yeah, service delivery principles. There are 3 principles which I talked about. One is the focus on customer. What are the customer's expectation? Know that. The second was manage work, not people. So that was the second, and then improve collaboratively and incrementally. Those are the 3 principles, service delivery principles. And Achintya, if you want to know more, we can talk more at the end or offline also. Kanban acronym stands for, okay, it's made of two words, Kan and Ban. It's like that stand for a card and a board. So a card and a board, that's what it stands for. And so you have a board, the Kanban board, on which you have the card, which are the your requirements, deliverables, or whatever you want to call. So that's in a nutshell. But there is no each letter stands for something. It's not like that, Mustafa. Okay. Let's move on. So similarities between the two. Both are agile. Both methodologies are agile. Both use pull scheduling. Pull scheduling means when a team member is done with their work, they pull the next item instead of being, assigning. Both limit work in progress. Some of you may say, how Scrum limits work in progress? Now, Scrum limits work in progress because at the beginning of the sprint, when you do sprint planning, you are saying, okay, we are going to take these items for this sprint. That's all. You're not going to take anything more than this. And that's where you're limiting your work in progress for that sprint. Both use visibility to drive process improvement. So I showed you the Kanban board, and that visualizes. And in Scrum, also you create a board just for the Scrum, or there may be a backlog, sprint backlog listed somewhere, and then you may see what are the things that are worked upon, how quickly or slowly you're finishing your stories. So there is a burn down chart that you create, which is a very visual picture of how team is making progress. So both are visible. They are both focused on delivering potentially shippable increments. In Kanban, actually, it is a continuous delivery. You don't have to even wait for finishing a sprint. So you deliver these things on an ongoing basis. Both are based on self-organizing teams. Both require breaking work into pieces, the smaller chunks. Both optimize release plan based on empirical data. So the data in case of Scrum is velocity. If you heard of that, how many story points a team can deliver within a sprint is velocity. And for Kanban, it is cycle time. How much time does it take to finish a requirement from end to end? That's the cycle time. And those two are used to basically create a release plan if you want to create any kind of release plan. Okay, any other similarities that you see? If you can type here, that would be great. Let's talk about the differences. So Scrum is a time boxed iterations. It's 1 week, 2 week, 3 week. Mostly people use 2 weeks or 3 weeks. In Kanban, you can set a cadence, but it's not required. And in Scrum, team commits usually that they will complete these items within the Scrum, within that time frame. In case of Kanban, it is commitment is optional because normally they don't do any kind of estimates to begin with in Kanban, and they say, okay, whatever it takes, it takes. And then in Scrum, you use velocity. In case of Kanban, you use cycle time. And in Scrum, cross-functional teams are prescribed. So cross-functional team, you can see Scrum is a little more prescriptive also. These 4 roles, these 3 roles, these 4 ceremonies, time boundaries, and all those kind of things. So a little more prescriptive. Whereas Kanban is not less prescriptive. It's less prescriptive. So it doesn't prescribe anything, but Scrum say, it's cross-functional teams means the team need to have all the skills that are required, and also one person may need to have multiple skills. That is what is preferred in Scrum. Whereas in Kanban, that's not even prescribed or recommended. It could be optional. Team item must be broken down so they can be completed within 1 sprint. I think that's what is required in Scrum, because a story has to be small enough to be completed within a sprint. In case of Kanban, there is no sprint boundary. Smaller sizes are preferred, but not required. Burn down chart is another thing that's prescribed, and no particular diagram is prescribed. WIP limit in case of Scrum is velocity, and it is for the sprint. In case of Kanban, it is limited per workflow state. Like for each column, you can have WIP limit. How many items can be in that column? Estimation prescribed, estimation is optional. And so you can see there are a lot of things that are different. Sprint backlog is owned by one specific team. Kanban board will be shared. 3 roles prescribed. Kanban doesn't prescribe any roles. Scrum board, if you use a board, then it is reset. So at the end of the sprint, everything goes away from there. And then when you create a new sprint, then the things come in the backlog. So the board is populated again. But in a Kanban environment, it's an ongoing thing. It's not reset. There are no sprints, so it's not reset. And Scrum uses a prioritized bar. In Kanban, it's optional. Actually, it's kind of useful if it is prioritized, but it's optional. Any other difference that anybody can think of between Scrum and Kanban? So as you think about that, I would also like you to think about where you think Scrum will be more useful and where you think Kanban will be more useful. And I don't have anything on this slide. So we'll talk, okay? You can talk, you can type. So where you think Scrum will be more suitable, where you think Kanban will be more suitable? You can talk or type. Kanban can be easily adopted outside of IT or software. Yes, it can very easily be adopted outside of IT or software development. Yeah.
I think Kanban is more suitable where schedule is not very, time bound, very short, perhaps, or very well defined, maybe.
Yeah, actually, you don't need where the schedule is not even needed. It's just a continuous.
Yeah. Okay.
Continuous delivery. You may not have even a schedule. Yeah, Scrum probably, if you have a schedule, like if you have, your release schedule every 3 months, there is a release going out, things like that. So Kanban could be used in that environment, but you can say, okay, whatever we would have completed, we'll deliver. So that is possible. So you can put a line on that, kind of a thing that whatever got completed in this much time will deliver. In Scrum, it is little more planned and little more predictable. Yes. Where else? Anybody else can think of? Anybody else want to type? Kanban will be best suited for production line system. Yeah, it is very well suited for production line system. Actually, it is. If you talk about production line system, it doesn't mean the manufacturing kind of environment. Where you have production line. Though it came from there. It came from there. And then one more comment has come. I think the non-profit area, which much work. Yeah, yep, that's right. So you have to create the process flow there, Roy, and see what are the activities that volunteers are doing, and that could be one of the things that can happen. But I'm thinking about some very, very general processes that we see every day around us. For example, recruiting. HR function. So if it goes through several steps before a job is fulfilled and the person comes on board, and you see there are a lot of companies who struggle with recruitment where they are growing fast and they need people, and some of the experiences shared with me are like it takes 2 months to get a role filled. That's a lot of time. And if you need a role today and you say you will get the person in 2 months' time, that's a lot of time. Onboarding is another example that I give every time. Okay, you hired the person, they have come and joined you, but then they are not functional because the onboarding is not complete. Onboarding means giving them the laptops, giving them the access and email and building access if you're a bigger company and you have all those kind of security things. Sometimes you will not believe it may take 2 or 3 weeks for any person to become, functional in the organization. So even if it takes 2 weeks and our organization, let's say, hires 10 people in a month, not a very large company, 10 people in a month, so 20% weeks. If it can be cut down by 50%, that will be great. That is where Kanban is very useful. That is where it is very, very useful to figure out how do you make incremental changes. Yeah, so that's right, Roy. That's right. Okay, so you get the idea. You get the idea where Scrum is useful, where Kanban. So if you see, you will find more usage of Kanban or more places where Kanban can be used than Scrum. So that is one reason that Kanban is now picking up, because people, this is a well-established agile methodology, and we don't have to be doing software development, and we don't have to do Scrum. So there is another agile methodology that can very well fit in a non-development environments. So I will just say non-development environment. It could be software, it could be any other product development. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. So Scrum is suited well for product development, helping teams deliver value early and continuously. We know about the Scrum. Kanban is well suited for service and support teams, reducing lead time and increasing throughput and customer satisfaction. Both are agile, and both will help teams and organizations to improve business results and customer satisfaction. So whether you use Scrum, you use Kanban, or a combination of those, that is going to help the teams. So any questions you have, you can type here. I have a couple of slides. I'll scroll through those slides as we talk about. So if you have any questions on today's webinar, you can either type here, or you can you can talk. So keep typing here. I'm looking at the chat box, and our next Lunch and Learn is on May 2nd, and we are going to talk about leadership skills, as I mentioned to you earlier. We have our next online training course on ACP exam prep class coming up from May 28th. There are 7 3-hour sessions in the US Central Time. I believe it is in the evening. So if you are preparing for ACP certification, this is something that you want to look for. And then we have several other agile trainings. First Step Towards Agility is a course that I have developed for the teams that are waterfall teams, and their senior management is still not convinced about agile, but they want to do something. They want to implement aspects of agile and want to get, improve their agility. So there are a lot of things that teams can do in that environment. So that's a training that I have developed in the recent past, and it has been a very successful training, and people really, really like it. And then, of course, we have Agile fundamental videos. It's a 1 full day of videos. There are 4 major modules on Agile fundamentals. And then there are several short videos, total of about maybe 9 hours of videos that you can use and learn about Agile. So this is good for the people and organizations who want to learn about Agile. They may not know much about Agile. So this is something, on demand, self-paced kind of a thing. Questions? I didn't see any questions come up. Philip, did we get any questions from the registration when people registered? And I'm looking at the chat box. If I have not responded to any question, I'll respond it to now.
Okay, I'm checking those now.
So there was a question that do you see project managers playing the Scrum Master role? In many companies, yes. Many companies, project managers play the role of a Scrum Master that is close to what they do. But when they play their role, you need to be cautious. They need to come out from that command and control kind of a mode, from command and control culture to the servant leadership culture. So Scrum Masters are servant leaders. So they will provide leadership. They need to facilitate. They need to help the team, but they are not the boss. So and there are some aspects of project management that may not be needed here. That you don't need. So project managers are, by the habit or behaviors in the past, they try to implement those, and that will not be productive. So yes, they can. Can you obtain PDUs from? Yes, Eric, you can obtain PDUs from this. And let me see, there is a slide about PDUs somewhere here. These are some more about, let's see. This is the PDU bundle. Yeah, this is the way you report your PDUs. So, and all of you who registered will get a copy of this slide deck, and it will have this slide number 43 that talks about how do you claim your PDU. Actually, this was related to Agile. So if any one of you is a certified Scrum Master, they can get one SEU, Scrum Education Unit, for their next level of certification. So you can get one SEU and one PDU. Okay, anything else? Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you. I'll be here for another minute or so. And if you have any question, you can type here or talk to me. And if not, then you can also talk to me later on. You can set up time with me and send your questions to me, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. I hope this was useful to you and you got something from this webinar today.